When 3I/ATLAS first appeared, it looked like just another interstellar comet, a fleeting visitor from another star system, expected to pass by and disappear forever. But astronomers quickly noticed something unprecedented. The object wasn't just passing through, it was slowing down, adjusting its trajectory with unnerving precision, and settling into a stable orbit around our sun. These weren't random gravitational quirks. If you're still watching, subscribe now. You crave more than answers. You seek what lies beyond. Subscribe now, and be part of the few who never stop searching. They were deliberate shifts, movements that defied every known natural explanation. As observations deepened, the picture grew stranger. A subtle change in rotation, magnetic anomalies, and a trailing metallic companion began to hint at something unthinkable. 3I/ATLAS might not be natural at all. Could it be controlled, engineered, intelligent? This is the shocking truth about 3I/ATLAS. For the first time in human history, an object from outside our solar system has entered, and apparently chosen to stay. Its behavior breaks the rules of celestial mechanics, suggesting not only the presence of advanced technology, but also a potential purpose. Whether it's observing, waiting, or communicating, the implications are staggering. We may not just be looking at a rock from another system, we could be witnessing the work of an intelligence far older and more advanced than ours. The idea that we're already being watched by something that arrived before we were ready to notice it, that changes everything. You weren't supposed to see this. 3I/ATLAS wasn't supposed to stay. It was supposed to pass through, wave goodbye with a tail of dust and gas, and disappear into the void like every other interstellar object. That's what the models said. That's what the data predicted. That's what everyone believed. And then the object slowed down, not decelerated because of solar drag, not disrupted by Jupiter's gravity. It slowed down in a controlled, precise, and deliberate way. That's where everything started to break down. The math didn't hold. The predictions failed. The behavior of 3I/ATLAS didn't follow the laws of celestial mechanics, not unless something or someone was guiding it. Because this wasn't a simple chunk of ice and rock drifting through space, this was something else. Something that altered its trajectory mid-flight, changed its rotational pattern, and eventually slipped into a stable orbit around our sun. A repeating orbit. That doesn't happen. Not with interstellar visitors, not unless there's a reason. Initially classified as a comet, 3I/ATLAS joined a short list of interstellar objects observed passing through the solar system, after Oumuamua and 2I/Borisov. But this one didn't behave like either of them. It spiraled, it lingered, and then it stayed. NASA's Webb and Hubble telescopes confirmed the anomalies. Spectral data revealed an odd spiral-shaped tail, unlike anything we've seen from natural outgassing. And there was something else. Radio signatures. Faint, repetitive, and oddly structured. Not random bursts, not solar interference. Patterns. Patterns that corresponded to one of the most fundamental constants in physics, the inverse of the fine structure constant. A number so deeply embedded in the architecture of the universe, that if it changed even slightly, atoms wouldn't hold together. That's not a number you stumble onto by accident. Scientists at major observatories flagged the object for continuous monitoring. Some tried to dismiss the data, called it a fluke, blamed instrumentation errors, but the patterns kept showing up. And the object kept behaving in ways that made less and less sense, at least if you were still pretending it was natural. Because here's the thing, interstellar objects don't stop in the solar system. They pass through. They don't loop back. They don't maintain consistent orbits. And they certainly don't adjust their spin rate in such a subtle, calculated fashion, unless there's intent. Then came the second object. Trailing 3I/ATLAS at a fixed distance was a metallic fragment. Small, cold, barely detectable, but it moved with it. Orbit for orbit, mile for mile, observatories captured flashes of reflective surfaces, heat fluctuations inconsistent with known materials, and magnetic anomalies that made no logical sense. What was it? A satellite? A companion? A drone? We still don't know, but it's there, following the main object like a scout shadowing its leader. The magnetic field readings around both bodies were unstable, but not chaotic. Structured, deliberate. Some theorized that it might be part of an advanced propulsion system, perhaps using localized magnetic fields to maneuver in a way that mimics natural orbital mechanics, just enough to avoid detection. Until now. And then came the wildest part of all. Some researchers quietly, off the record, started using a different term. They weren't calling it a comet anymore. Not even an object. They started calling it a probe. An ancient probe. Autonomous. Intelligent. Purposeful. Designed not to announce itself but to wait, to watch, to learn. A galactic seed, planted long ago, meant to drift through the stars, embedding itself in solar systems as they become capable of noticing it. This isn't science fiction. These are observations from respected space agencies and independent astronomers, backed by verifiable data. And while no one has issued an official statement declaring 3I/ATLS to be artificial, no one can explain what it's doing either, because the implications are staggering. If this object is artificial, if it's a machine, then it means we are not alone, not in theory, not in some distant possibility, but right here, right now, in our backyard. And if it's a machine, then someone built it, which means someone sent it. And they didn't just send it to fly by, they sent it to stay. So we have to ask, why now? Why here? Why us? Is it here to observe, to monitor, to catalog our development as a civilization, or is it here for something else, something we don't yet understand? The timing is hard to ignore. Humanity is approaching a technological tipping point. Satellite constellations in orbit, probes on Mars, radio telescopes scanning the stars. We're louder in the cosmos than we've ever been. Maybe something heard us. Maybe this probe was triggered by our noise, or maybe it's always been listening, and we finally became interesting. There's also the question of risk. This isn't a Hollywood scenario. There's no dramatic invasion, no ships in the sky, just a silent, slow-moving object parked in a stable orbit, quietly feeding data back to wherever it came from, or waiting for a reply. But the threat isn't in lasers or warships, it's in what this object means. It means that intelligent life exists outside Earth, and that it's aware of us. It means that someone else can build machines capable of interstellar travel, of surviving for thousands, maybe millions of years in the void, and of executing orbital maneuvers that mimic nature so well we almost miss them. It means that our understanding of space exploration, of contact, of cosmic timelines, is all wrong. Because this isn't a message we were supposed to receive in real time. This is long-haul, passive observation. This is deep time strategy. This is how civilizations that survive 1,000,000 years operate. They don't land ships, they send seeds. They let the younger civilizations come to them. And 3I/ATLS might be one of those seeds. Some SETI researchers have speculated for decades that if extraterrestrial civilizations existed, they would use probes, autonomous, self-repairing, built to endure cosmic radiation and solar storms, machines that could wait, that could watch, that could learn. Not because they're malicious, but because that's what intelligence does when it reaches a certain scale. It observes, it maps, it catalogs. And maybe if the conditions are right, it makes contact. Or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it just watches forever. And maybe that's what's happening right now. There are still skeptics. Of course there are. They'll tell you there's no proof, that it's just a comet behaving oddly, that we're projecting meaning onto noise. And they're right. There's no definitive evidence, no handshake, no transmission, no unmistakable signal that says, you are not alone. But here's the catch. They didn't send a signal, they sent the object. The behavior is the message. An interstellar object should not slow down, should not rotate precisely, should not form a repeating orbit, should not be trailed by a second metallic body, should not emit structured radio signals tied to fundamental constants, but it did. And it does. And if we're honest deep down, we know what that means. This isn't a comet, it's a test of whether we're paying attention. A test of whether we're ready to accept that the universe is more complex and more populated than we ever imagined. Because for the first time in recorded history, an object from another star has entered our solar system and stayed. That changes everything. It changes how we think about space, about contact, about the future. We're no longer the lone observers peering out into the stars, wondering if anyone's looking back. Someone is. and they're parked just a few million miles away, quiet, calculating, waiting. For what? We don't know. But they're here, and they're watching. And the longer 3I/ATLS remains in our solar system, the less it looks like an accident, and the more it looks like a choice. So the only question left to ask is what happens next, because whether we like it or not, something just arrived. And it doesn't look like it's leaving. If you want more no-nonsense analysis like this, factual, unfiltered, and focused on what really matters, subscribe now. This is just the beginning. The future won't wait, neither should you. There's a growing unease inside the global scientific community. It doesn't come from fear of the unknown. It comes from the creeping realization that we may not be at the top of the intelligence chain, that we're not just discovering the universe, we're being discovered. When 3I/ATLS first entered the picture, it was barely a blip. The third confirmed interstellar object. Interesting, but not world-shattering. It didn't exhibit the wild eccentricity of Oumuamua, nor the icy tail of 2I/Borisov. It was subtle, quiet, slipping past planetary orbits without drawing too much attention, until the trajectory changed. Not because of solar wind, not because of planetary influence, it adjusted on its own. The velocity reduced, not abruptly, but precisely. An exact deceleration timed so perfectly that it began to curve into a solar orbit instead of sailing past. The object captured itself, like a spacecraft entering a planned insertion burn. That's not a natural maneuver. That's orbital engineering. Once it looped the sun once, it did it again. Same path, same timing. Over and over. A consistent heliocentric orbit. No comet does that. No asteroid. Not without decaying or fragmenting. This wasn't decaying. It wasn't disintegrating. It was holding course with more accuracy than most human satellites. The object was behaving like it knew what it was doing. Soon deep space radio observatories began to take note of faint electromagnetic fluctuations, tiny shifts in the local magnetic field that seemed to ripple around 3I/ATLS. They weren't natural oscillations. They pulsed, they repeated, and then they locked, aligning themselves with mathematically significant intervals. That's when someone noticed it. The inverse of the fine structure constant, buried in the timing. It's one of the most stable numbers in the universe. It describes how light interacts with matter. A constant that exists beyond time, beyond galaxies. There's no cultural meaning, no linguistic overlay. It's physics at the root level. You don't broadcast that number unless you know someone on the other end will recognize it. And then the second object was confirmed. That was the turning point. Smaller, harder to detect, but orbitally consistent, not drifting randomly. It was pacing with 3I/ATLS like an escort, or a sensor array, or maybe something far more complex, an extension of the main body itself. Together they moved like pieces of a system, not in chaos, not random, controlled, and yet no emissions, no visible propulsion, no thermal exhaust. It wasn't trying to show off. It was hiding in plain sight. Some researchers now privately refer to it as a passive intelligence platform, designed to embed itself, observe silently, transmit when necessary. The kind of long-term surveillance tool an advanced civilization would use, not to interfere, but to witness. That concept alone shakes the foundations of how we perceive contact. Because we've always assumed it would be loud. Radio beacons, messages in all directions, greetings in binary code. But what if it's none of that? What if the first real contact isn't a message at all? What if it's a presence? An object that doesn't knock on the door. It just walks into the room and waits for you to notice. The stakes are astronomical. If 3I/ATLS is artificial, it redefines our position in the cosmos. It means that we're not the first to reach this point in development. That interstellar capability isn't theoretical. It's practical, repeatable, and far older than us. It means there's a network out there. A civilization, or maybe many, deploying sentinels across the stars. Not with urgency, not with conquest, but with patience measured in millennia. And this may not be the first one. It may be just the first we've seen. Some speculate that probes like this have been passing through for centuries, Only now are our instruments sensitive enough to detect them. And even then barely. Because these things are quiet by design. If 3I/ATLAS is a surveillance node, it's the equivalent of a galactic reconnaissance satellite. No transmissions, no disturbances, just motion, precision, subtle changes, silent observation. And that's what makes it so unsettling. Because if it's observing us. Not the planets, not the sun. Us. It arrived when our technology reached a threshold, when we could detect it. When we had the capability to notice the patterns, to identify the anomalies. That timing may not be a coincidence. It may be the trigger. Some think that these objects lie dormant until a civilization reaches a minimum level of technological noise. Radio waves, satellite networks, high-energy particle collisions. Then they engage, lock into orbit, begin recording, maybe even transmitting back. That opens up possibilities humanity isn't ready for. Because if it's transmitting, then someone's listening. And if someone's listening, then we're already part of a larger conversation, one we didn't start and don't control. And no one can predict what happens next. Governments are watching, but keeping quiet. There's no public policy yet. No declarations. The data is too thin for definitive answers, but too precise to ignore. Some departments are calling it a non-hostile unknown. Others are quietly elevating the alert level, without triggering panic. After all, this isn't a missile. It's not a threat in the conventional sense. It's not moving towards Earth. It's not emitting dangerous radiation. It's just there. Watching. And that's what makes it terrifying. Because it could be nothing. Or it could be everything. We have no idea what its presence means. No idea what protocol it's following. No idea if it's autonomous or still connected to a higher command. And yet it orbits over and over like it's waiting. Some believe it's here to collect data and leave. Others believe it's permanent. Some think it's part of a galactic network, each probe linking back to a central archive, like cosmic servers storing data on emerging civilizations. And then there's the darker possibility, that it's not here to observe us at all. That it's here to observe something else, something beneath the surface, something about Earth's position, or history, or biological uniqueness. That it's not responding to our technology, it's responding to a signal we never noticed. A planetary echo, a genetic marker, something buried deep in our past or encoded in our biology. Something they're tracking. That raises new questions. Are we just another species under surveillance? Or are we the target of a long-forgotten initiative? Did someone seed Earth with life, and now they've returned to check in? Or worse, are we an anomaly? Something that wasn't supposed to happen. A deviation that triggered an alert. Right now there are no answers. Only possibilities. But one thing is clear. This object didn't arrive by accident. It didn't capture itself into orbit by chance. It didn't produce radio patterns based on universal constants by coincidence. It was meant to be here. And now that it's here, it's not leaving. So we face a choice. We can dismiss it. Pretend it's natural. Fold it into neat academic categories, and bury the anomaly. Or we can accept the far harder truth, that an intelligence we don't understand, has made contact without saying a word, and they're watching everything we do next. Not judging, not threatening, just waiting. Maybe they're waiting to see if we reach a new threshold. Maybe they're waiting to see if we destroy ourselves. Maybe they're waiting to welcome us, or contain us. We don't know. And maybe we're not meant to. Because maybe this probe isn't for us. Maybe it's for them. Proof that we've crossed the line into cosmic relevance. Proof that Earth is no longer isolated. Proof that we've entered the game. And once you're in, there's no going back. 3I/ATLAS isn't just an object in orbit. It's a mirror. And it's reflecting something we've been too afraid to admit. That the silence of the universe was never empty. It was just quiet. Until now. There's a thin line between awe and dread. And humanity is now standing directly on it. Because when an object from another star system comes in, changes speed, locks itself into a stable orbit, and starts radiating signals wrapped in universal constants, you don't just shrug and walk away. You either face the implications, or you bury them. And for now most of the world hasn't even noticed. 3I/AT is still labeled a comet in the public databases. The kind of innocuous term that fits neatly into the mental file cabinet of space phenomena. But behind closed doors that label is losing its grip. Too many questions. Too many impossibilities. Natural objects don't behave like this. Not even rare ones. This isn't just anomalous. It's operational. And that's what separates 3I/AT from every other interstellar body we've observed. Oumuamua sped through. Never even hinted at a return. Borisov too. Fast, icy, gone. But this one stayed. Chose to stay. That changes the entire equation. Because you don't stay unless there's a reason. If it's a machine and all signs suggest it is, then its orbit isn't just functional, it's intentional. Strategic. Positioned for longevity. Positioned for visibility. Like it wants us to see it. Eventually. Not today. Maybe not even this decade. But in time. It's a long game. The kind that spans civilizations. And we're the newcomers just now stepping onto the field. Think about the implications. This could be the most important discovery in human history. And it's silent. No transmissions asking for peace. No messages of war. No grand speeches broadcast across the stars. Just presence. That's the part most people aren't prepared to face. Because it's not the contact they've been told to expect. It's colder, stranger, more indifferent. This isn't about us. Not directly. It's about the system. The rules of how interstellar life operates. We assumed that contact would be mutual. Two sides reaching across the void to say hello. But maybe that's not how it works. Maybe civilizations that survive long enough to travel between stars don't reach out. Maybe they watch. Maybe they catalog. And maybe when the time is right, they act. Not with fanfare. With precision. And if 3I/AT is a probe, then that's exactly what's happening now. We've been cataloged. And somewhere someone knows we're here. So now we wait. Not for confirmation. Not for disclosure. We wait to see what comes next. Because the door to the universe didn't open with a bang. It opened with a whisper. A quiet, stable orbit. A number buried in a radio pulse. A presence parked between the planets. 3I/AT didn't arrive with answers. It arrived with a question. And now the question isn't if we're alone. It's why we were never meant to know. Until now.